Hi everyone, it's Melissa, and today I would like to share with you some of my favorite picture books. I previously did a video talking about picture books, but they were all what I think are beautifully illustrated picture books, which is fine. Part of the picture book experience is the storytelling through the illustrations. This pile, while there are a few that I think do have really nice illustrations, this list is more so based on the content of the books. And in order to make the list, they had to be books that both myself and my daughter enjoy. So I would say most of these are probably in the K to 2, so maybe ages like 5 to 7, 5 to 8. Many of them we have been reading to my daughter since preschool, so some of them skew a little younger, some a little older, but I think all of them would work for that K to 2 age range. So I thought we would just get a couple of classics out of the way so that I can talk about some other ones that you may or may not have heard of. So we have to start with The Monster at the End of This Book, starring lovable furry old Grover. I remember reading this as a child. My daughter also likes it. We've been reading this to her since preschool, and this is a book about the power of being a reader and seeing where a story goes and being in charge of a story. And I just think this book is magical and it's really, really funny. I remember thinking that this was a riot when I was a kid. Another one that I think has stood the test of time is The Paper Bag Princess by Robert Munch, illustrated by Michael Martchenko. It is about a princess who is going to marry a prince until a dragon comes along and burns down everything and captures the prince. And the princess puts on a paper bag and runs to save her prince from the dragon. And I just love that the princess takes charge and that she doesn't settle for a prince who turns out to be not to her standards. So this, of course, I think is really popular and a classic children's book for a reason. And this is definitely my favorite Robert Munch book. So those are definitely ones that I think most people have heard of, even if you don't have young kids in your life. So the rest you may or may not have heard of. The first one is Giraffes Can't Dance by Giles, Andreae, and Guy Parker-Rees. So this is about this little dance that happens every year in the jungle, and all the animals dance all these different styles, except for Gerald the giraffe, who has really long, cumbersome limbs and just can't dance. And it's all about finding ways to participate that are right for you. And yeah, I think it's really sweet. Gerald finds a way to dance that makes him feel good and is able to participate. And yeah, this is just another cute little story that we read quite often. So I think the next two on my list are definitely the tops in my house right now, both very different tones. The first one I want to talk about is Sulwe. I'm assuming that's how it's pronounced. I've never heard a read aloud of this, and I've only just ever seen it in print, so please correct me if I'm wrong, but we pronounce it Sulwe. This is by Lupita Nyong'o and illustrated by Vashti. So this book is the most, the illustrations are gorgeous, but the message in it is just so beautiful. This is my favorite children's book in the house. And this one and the next one are probably tied for the most read books in our house. But this deals with colorism in such a beautiful way that children can understand. It's about a little girl called Sulwe who has very dark skin, and because of that, she is treated poorly and called names by the other kids at her school. And it's about her finding and understanding the beauty that she has. And I just think this is a must-have for your child's bookcase. It is so absolutely stunning. I'm going to show you some illustrations. So here's one with Sulwe and her mother, which the relationship between Sulwe and her mom is just so beautiful in this book. I'm going to say the word beautiful a lot about this book, but Sulwe can't see her own beauty and is so upset because she does all of these things in the book to try to turn her skin lighter, and her mother has this conversation with her about the brightness that she has inside of her, even if her skin isn't light and bright, that she herself is bright, and that you can't rely on what other people think of you to love yourself. And it's just, I read this in the bookstore and that was a mistake. I was skimming through it and I started to tear up. It honestly, it's so gorgeous. I'm going to show you some other pictures. So here's one. Sulwe is transported by a star where she learns about this tale of two sisters, day and night. I mean, look at this. And everyone loves day and hates night. And if you buy anything I talk about, buy this book. It is, like I said, it's the best children's book I've ever bought. So the next book is the other top book in my house that my daughter finds hilarious, as do I. So very different tonally, but it's The Book with No Pictures by Bj Novak. And it, like it says on the cover, has no pictures. So can you even call this a picture book? But this is another one, I guess similar to the monster at the end of this book. This is another one about the power of reading and the power of stories and the power of words. And this is really great if you are a teacher for a, like read aloud. It has to be a read aloud. This is just how it works. I actually went into my daughter's preschool class when she was 4 and read this aloud, and the classroom was cracking up. So how this book works is it starts off saying things like, this is a book with no pictures. I know that sounds very boring, but the secret to books is whoever's reading the books has to say all the words. And then it turns into this book of very silly, very funny things that the adult reading the book then has to say. And it's always a hit with my daughter, even though she knows what's coming. But I will say the first time you read this book to a child is magical. The first time I read it to my daughter, and the first page is something like, this is a book with no pictures, my daughter literally went, oh. And by the end of the book, she was laughing, and I had to read it to her 2 times in a row the first time we read it. So definitely a big recommend for this one. Well, clearly I recommend all of these books because I think they're great. It's called One Grain of Rice. So it's a mathematical folktale, which when I saw that, I saw this at the thrift shop, and I saw that word and I thought, okay, I have to know more. There is this young woman. So there's this Raja. Let me back up. There's a Raja who takes basically like a tax of rice from all the people in the land and keeps them in these storehouses in case of an emergency. Well, eventually there is an emergency. There is a famine, but the Raja gets greedy and he doesn't want to starve and he wants to make sure he has enough rice for himself. So he keeps it all. And this young woman, she does a good deed and the Raja says, well, you can have whatever you want, thinking that maybe she'll ask for like a bag of rice or something. But because she knows her math and is so clever, she asks for 1 grain of rice to double every day for, I think it's 30 days. Yes, it's 30 days. So she tells the Raja, on day 1, I will take 1 grain of rice. On day 2, I will take 2 grains of rice. On day 3, I will take 4 grains of rice, and so on and so forth. So the Raja thinks, you silly girl, like, okay, fine, deal. But if you do the math, doubling rice every day means that by the end of 30 days, she has accumulated over 1 billion grains of rice and is able to feed the entire village. I just love that this is a folktale about math. Also, like I said, the illustrations in this particular book are really cool. They're very bright. I just love the colors. As she gets more grains of rice, bigger and bigger animals have to bring them to her. She gets 8 baskets of rice. And then bigger animals until you get to this spread where all of these elephants have to bring her all of this rice. So I just think that this is such an interesting little folktale. So I think this is something that is a really unique addition to a children's library. Now this one I think definitely skews to a younger age, and my daughter's probably a little bit too old for it in terms of the words, but it has sparked some really good discussion. So I thought I would include it, and it's All Are Welcome by Alexandra Penfold and Suzanne Kaufman. So this is a very simple little story about some kids who are going to school, and it's all about how everyone is welcome in their classroom. So I'll just share, this is another one actually with a really nice illustration. So I'll just share, and it talks a lot about community. So I think this would be a good one if your child is starting preschool or starting kindergarten, because it is a story about being in school and being part of a community at school, and that you are welcome there. So I think in terms of a child starting school, it can be good in that way. But another way that I really love this book is its representation and diversity. So because my child is a little bit too old, like I said, for the prose in this book, it's really the pictures that draw us in and talking about the different type of people that we see. And she has questions. My daughter is almost 6 now, and she asks questions about like, why is this person wearing that thing on their head? So we can have a discussion about hijab. There's a little boy in a yarmulke. Is that how you pronounce it? I am sorry, Jewish friends, if I've mispronounced that. So there are children that are wearing different types of clothing. There are many different races of children. There is a child who is a wheelchair user and a child who uses a cane, so they are blind. And there's also good representation of different types of families. So at the end of the book, all of the people, all the families who go to the school, who live in the neighborhood, are all coming for this little potluck or event. And there are families with a single parent, there are families with 2 moms, there is a family with 2 dads, there are interracial marriage and interracial family, and I think that even if your kid's a little bit old for the words, that it is a good book for discussion. So when we read this book, I'll read the page, but we will often stay on the page much longer and talk about what we see, and my daughter has questions, and if I don't know the answer, then we look it up and see if we can learn something new. So I think that this, even though the language is very simplistic, could appeal to a lot of different ages of children. So I actually did have some more books I wanted to talk about, but I think this video is long enough. So I will maybe save a few other children's books that I really love and talk about them in another video sometime. Please share below your favorite children's books. I am always looking to add to my daughter's very expansive library. Thank you as always so much for watching, and we'll chat soon. Take care. Bye.